Hey, thanks for dropping by to the Planners on Purpose podcast, created by Naomi Tucker, CMP. Now, this space is for the event planners to encourage and empower you so that you can fully live your life on purpose. So before we dig in, please take a moment to subscribe so you get future shows. Now, here she comes, your host, Naomi.
Hi there, everyone. It is Naomi Tucker. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode and the Planners on Purpose podcast. Today, I'm excited because you get the opportunity to listen to a special guest interview. My guest today is Deanna Nwosu. Deanna is a leader in the meeting and event industry, as well as an event emcee, moderator, and speaker. Deanna believes in the power of memories and that today the power of memories is being overlooked. So we're going to get into that and talk a bit about the power of memories and how creating them for your event is so very important. Plus, we'll talk about a whole list of other topics. I hope you enjoyed this interview, and I'll join you later to wrap up. Well, it's my distinct pleasure to be joined today by event professional, MC, speaker, and woman of many talents, Deanna Nwosu, from Deanna Camille. So Deanna, thank you so much for joining me here on the Planners on Purpose podcast.
Thank you, Naomi. I'm happy to be here, and yeah, this should be fun.
It really should. So I told some of our listeners a little bit about you, but it would be great to just hear from you just a little about your background, how you got into the industry and where you are now.
Yeah, so I started in hospitality. That's my first job way back in high school. I was working at Taco Bell. So I've been in the hospitality industry for 20 plus years and kind of transitioned into events during college. Actually, what really interested me about the event career was I was volunteering with some of my college organizations. So my sorority, I was part of the gospel choir, and I was part of a couple other extracurriculars, if you will, and got involved with planning events essentially. And I was like, this is kind of cool. So I was a business major. And then I went ahead and followed that path after college. And so I've worked on the corporate side. I've worked on the association side. Mm-hmm. I have worked as a planner. I have worked on the supplier side, with the venues and with restaurant and hotel. And fast forward to now, in 2021, I decided to go independent. And I'm an independent event strategist. And as you mentioned, I do some MC work, some moderating and speaking as well. So I try to do a little bit of consulting on experience design, bringing that 360-degree view of my background of events to the table. But yeah, I love events. I love the industry and everything that comes with it.
You're just such a beautiful soul too, Deanna. It was, I loved it when you reached out. We kind of been communicating on LinkedIn, and Deanna, everybody was so just gracious and just so welcoming. So she is definitely just someone to just want to get to know. So I really appreciate you being here and us just being able to have a conversation. I find it interesting that you're now doing, more event strategy and being an MC and being a speaker. Like, what led you to the journey of doing that switch?
It's a great question. So part of me going independent last year, not to I started the Bone Thugs and Harmony song, "See You at the Crossroads," but I was at a crossroads. I was the role I was in, I had outgrown it. I had outgrown that position, and there wasn't any room for growth for me within that company. I loved my coworkers. I loved my boss. Like the environment was great. It's just the actual work I was doing, I just outgrown it. But I didn't know what I wanted to step into next. So I had been kind of job hunting, and nothing was really calling me, to be completely honest. It would have been a lot of either lateral transitions, and I felt like I was in the point of my career where I needed the next step, but then the next step was a lot of management type roles, and I wasn't sure that that's what I wanted either. So I said, you know what? If you go independent, you can build your own job. You can work on the projects that interest you. You can take some time to figure it out, like what your next step is. And that's exactly what I've done over the past year. If you look back, I'm really thankful that LinkedIn, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You kind of can't really go back and see people's old posts. I mean, you can, but it's a lot of scrolling. It's a lot easier to do it on like an Instagram or TikTok. Like you can go back on history really easily. But I originally started my business offering kind of coaching and a course for speakers and really teaching them how to sell to event professionals, because I felt like a lot of speakers were just going about it the wrong way. And there's two learnings I got out of that. One, I don't want to be a course person. I don't want to be a coach. So that's what I started with. And I learned I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. And then two, I also took away from that, for anyone who's going into business or entrepreneurship or anything like that, you have to already kind of have an audience and really understand what they need before you just kind of create a product or service and put it out in the market. And that was definitely a humbling lesson of, you've created this thing, but how many speakers do you really have their ear? How many speakers follow you on social networks? How many do you have a email list or anything? And so I learned you kind of have to build the community first, understand what the community wants before you just put a product or service out there. So fast forward to now and the services that I offer, it's kind of been trial and error with the clients that I have picked up along the way. Yes, I'll do some planning work, but some of them have been uncomfortable moderating a Zoom session. So, hey, I'll do that. Some of them have been uncomfortable consulting. One of my clients is actually an event agency. So I do like some contracting work for them. Okay. And I just consulted one of their clients on a strategy for a virtual event. They had previously done this event in person. They did it virtually last year and it went pretty well, but they wanted to improve and really make sure that they put their best foot forward. And so that's all I did, is I kind of walked them through options. I presented the pros and cons of each option, and then they kind of selected based on their audience and their budget and their needs. But they were so grateful because I brought the event planner perspective to the forefront, because they don't have a planner on staff. So that's how I stumbled upon these things that I'm kind of currently offering. And in terms of the speaking, I think it's really key that people are aware of the words that you're speaking to coworkers, family, friends. A couple years back, at my former employer, a colleague was telling me she followed me on LinkedIn and she followed me on Facebook, and I had been putting out like some motivational fitness videos just because it was really keeping myself accountable. And she said, Deanna, you're such a good speaker. You're so good on camera. You're just so natural with that. And it struck a chord. Like, I'm not going to lie, because I had done some theater. I done some, performing on stage as a kid and in college and things. And I'm comfortable in this environment, but I hadn't been doing it. I hadn't been speaking in public probably for a decade or so. And so her saying that 2+ years ago kind of reignited that interest in me. And so fast forward now, I've been on the WEC stage. I was slated to speak at IMEX last year, but my back had other plans for me. But yeah, it was just, I went into entrepreneurship and being independent with, let's see what comes to the table. And a year later of exploring and playing, those things have been revealed to me as I have gone along.
Yeah, I think that's so amazing. And it's so great that you listened too, right? When your colleague told you that, hey, you do such a really good job at this. I think there's so many times that we don't listen to what that strength is and what people see inside of us. So for you to be able to take that and move it along and start to explore that, I think that's so key. And you've gotten so many fantastic results. I know, like with MPI, I've just been seeing so many people saying how much they enjoy your speaking and how much you bring to the table, and you light up the room. So that's just amazing. It sounds like you hit your stride.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because all along this way, I've made some great LinkedIn friends, Instagram friends, and people like yourself that I haven't actually met physically in person, but we communicate online. And some good feedback that I've gotten, I won't even say good feedback, but I'll hear Deanna, you're just doing so awesome. Like, you're so bold. One of my really good girlfriends, she's like my accountability partner. And she's like, you're just so bold. You just go out there and you just post she's like, you're so fearless. And I was like, I'm not fearless. Okay. I have fear. I have insecurities. I just don't allow them to stop me going after what I want. So I think that has been the biggest lesson for me over the past year, that there's not much difference between me and some of these other people that are on stage. Yes, some of them may have been doing it longer. They may have more reps in, they may have more of a experience. That's very valid. But in terms of their worthiness to be on that stage, in terms of the professionalism that they bring to the stage, I mean, I'm sure as a speaker, I'm sure as a planner, you have encountered less than professional speakers, diva attitudes, people that you have to beg, borrow, and plead and steal to get just their bio and headshot, right? So I know that there's things I bring to the table that other speakers just don't do, just from, my life as a planner. And so this past year of me kind of being, I wouldn't say fearless, but unafraid of failure, unafraid of looking stupid, because I'm going to be honest, a lot of times I'll post stuff and I'm like, that was dumb, or you look stupid online. And it's okay. Like, humans are not perfect. We're imperfect. We're flawed creatures. And I think me being willing to share my vulnerabilities or put out content that I'm not even necessarily super proud of, or that I'm like, this is really good, it might be subpar in my eyes. A lot of times my best performing content on social media is stuff that I don't even really think through. I'll just post it randomly and then it'll really resonate with people. And so I've learned, like, just remove you can't be your barrier to you reaching the things you want to get, right? Like, there'll be plenty of external barriers that'll keep you away from your goals and things, but don't get in your own way because you've got self-doubt or because you're scared. Like, okay, be scared and post it anyway. Have some doubt, post it anyway. Like, do it anyway. It doesn't matter. If you don't do it, you're going to have that what if wondering. And if you do, you'll either succeed or you'll learn. There's really no loss.
Yeah, so many great points. It reminds me of a quote, but really just talking about putting fear in the back seat. The fear can be along for the ride with you, but you're in control. Exactly. You have the steering wheel. Keep fear in the back seat. So it sounds like you've been able to definitely do that as you're building your business too. And it's very helpful.
Me and Fair, we're hand in hand. We're best buds. Like,
hey,
we're just walking down the street together constantly.
And that's okay, as long as you're leading the way, right? So.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So, and I think that that's a really great point just for anyone that's listening that perhaps want to go into entrepreneurship. There is a time during when you're growing and scaling that you are going to have to just really put yourself out there. So I think that's just very important for people to understand that you need to be willing to just take that risk.
And I used to think that I could never do sales. And while sales still is not my first career, if you will, like, there's a component of sales you have to do as an entrepreneur. It just comes with the territory. I'm much bolder than I ever thought I could be in terms of going for the sale, asking for the sale, putting a proposal together, being bold in my pricing. Like, it took a while to get there, and being okay with people saying no, people saying that I'm too expensive, people saying that well, the way you do your pricing doesn't work. I want to pay hourly, not flat rate, or vice versa. Okay. Like, being okay with letting business go that's not for me. Like, I am a firm believer. Part of it is my spirituality. I am a Christian and I have the Christian faith. And I do believe that what God has for me is for me. And, that's what I bring to my business. I will, with new clients or prospects, I'll put forth a proposal. And if they don't respond right away, I'll follow up maybe a week later, maybe twice. And then at that point, I'm not putting any more energy towards it. I'm not worrying about it. I'm not stressing over it. I'm not bugging them because, if they haven't responded, it's for a reason, whether I need to know it or not. And I feel that because I've harnessed that energy, 9 times out of 10, what I've seen happen, Naomi, is a better opportunity comes along, something that's more in alignment, something that's not going to require me to cancel appointments, change my schedule and to make something work. Like it'll just fit easier. And so having that ability to just, embrace what's for me and not stress about what's not has really been what's helped me be secure in this entrepreneurial journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, without that burden and just without that pressure that's being placed on you all the time. I mean, you know your worth, you know what you're capable of, and you're just making sure that you're receiving and just only going for things that just feel really good, right? So
exactly,
that's awesome. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, the past 2 years. The event industry has really gone through something. And it sounds like from the transitions that you have been experiencing too, that you also had a different perspective maybe on this great reshuffling or great resignation that is happening. I would love to just hear from your perspective what you're seeing in the industry and maybe even how it affected you. I know we talked about it a little bit, but just wanting to see what you are hearing and seeing in the industry in terms of this and where we are.
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on the internal kind of push factors of why I left my most recent full-time employment. Yeah. But I would say that the state of the industry, the reshuffling, as you mentioned, was probably the pull factor. It was seeing that we are in the midst of this huge transformation. I mean, the world of work in general is changing, but you add that on top of the transformation of the event industry. So many people had lost their jobs, moved into different industries. So we've got now the people that are coming into events are coming from other industries, or they're young, new graduates, and they just don't have experience. So it's a lot of upskilling, reskilling. So I just felt like it was a once in a lifetime kind of lightning moment that I wanted to be a part of that. Like while the industry is transforming and coming this new rebirth, why don't I do that for myself in my own career and see where, I land as a result of it. Yeah. And so what I have seen over the past year, and I think will be a lot more of it moving forward, is gig work, contract work. Yes. If I'm brutally honest, if I'm completely honest, I could have made a lot more money last year if I was just willing to work all the time. Like when I left full-time employment, I made a promise to myself that yes, you can have busy weeks here and there, but I did not want to run myself ragged, because in that case, I could have just stayed at a job. Right. So yeah, I could have been making a lot of money if I just worked 60, 70 hours a week because the work was there. That's what I found, is that contract work, whether they're short-term or even, companies that had let go of event staff and they weren't ready to bring a full-time staff person on yet because there's so much happening. Who knows where events will be a year from now? Do we really want to invest in an employee? No, but we know we're having this event in 6 months and we need a contract worker to bring the plan together. And so I think there'll be more of that. I also think that there will be people that are doing a combo. Side hustling was already a thing pre-pandemic, but I feel because everyone was so shaken up and it was apparent that nothing is guaranteed, people are more trying to hedge their bets and make sure that, diverse income streams, that, if something goes awry with my main gig, I have something on the side I can easily ramp up to offset that. So I think the world of work in events, but obviously on a greater, the greater society as a whole, we'll see a lot of combo of people working full-time jobs, having their own businesses, or a second job, doing consulting and contracting on the side as well. So it'll be interesting to see what things look like, 2 to 5 years from now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Everything that you said is so on point. Definitely, I think that people have had to come face to face with, I didn't know that this could happen. And it happened. And so now what, right? And some people were out of work for, a year or two. So they really had to think on their feet. They really had to really do some changes in their life. And in a way, in a weird way, it ended up allowing just everyone to slow down. And I think even just slowing down allowed people to have the feelings that popped up with them on what do I really, really want to do? So I've had, even in my work, some people that have come to me and I really want to do this now. I don't want to be in event planning anymore, or there's these opportunities now. I can get into the tech space now more, and that's really where I want to be. So it's really been interesting to see where everyone is shuffling and where everyone's landing, and even people who've taken the opportunity to say, I'm retiring. I'm totally done with it.
Smart.
So,
if you had the financial resources to do so,
do
it. Now is the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it will be pretty amazing just to see, like you mentioned, how the industry really responds as we start to get back to a new normal.
Yeah.
Those new planners that are coming up, those new thought leaders that are coming up in the industry, just really seeing who those people are. I think it's going to definitely take off and be all for the good, but just seeing those people rise will be pretty a good sight to see.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of niching down, as you mentioned, the tech space, getting into marketing more. I think for a lot of planners who are very logistics focused, or you may have worked for an association, realizing in the greater world of events, the opportunities for niching down, being more involved with the strategy, being involved with the content. Now, especially with virtual events, I mean, it's its own field in and of itself. A lot of people are focused solely on virtual and hybrid events, or even more the TV production elements that come with, really polished events. So there's so many opportunities to rebrand oneself right now and explore a different facet of either this industry or events within another industry. Like, why not take that opportunity?
And take it quickly, right? Because I feel like it's been a couple years, people have been trying to figure things out, but really I think now it seems like that window that was open
narrowing.
Is starting to narrow. So it's like, if you're going to jump, it's time to jump.
Right.
So, yeah. And I guess with just what I have also been seeing with planners is, because there's these different dynamics, this reshuffling, it's really presented a different type of stress, and mental health is just even so important. We've been talking about it in the event industry before this whole pandemic happened. It got a little bit more necessary during the pandemic, right? And so even now, there's still this, we still need to take care of our people in the industry. We have those that have been just hanging out and still doing the work through the whole 2 years. And we have some that are now entering into new roles, that involve, producing programs and, like you're saying, doing more production work. So how do you just even see anyone kind of managing their mental health in this time? I would love to just hear your perspective on just easing the stress and really inviting in kind of what's next for themselves with being less stressed.
That's such real talk, Naomi. I could sit here and just say, oh, I don't let myself get stressed and, positive vibes only. And I am in general a pretty positive person, but it happens to the best of us. I'm not going to lie. This honestly, I would say probably happens to me every year because it's winter, but it caught me by surprise this year. I don't know why. The first 2 weeks of January, I was in a rut. I would say it was more of a depressive state, less of like anxiety and more of just like, I couldn't get going. I was in a fog. I felt like I was like crawling in mud. I would literally sit in front of, I would sit in meetings because I had meetings with clients, but in between those meetings, I couldn't do anything. I just felt so like shackled. I don't know, for lack of a better term, I would sit in front of the computer for 8 hours a day and have nothing to show for it. And so a couple things. I think one, we have to do better at taking care of our physical bodies. I had talked to a good friend kind of during that piece. It was so funny. I hadn't talked to him in like months, and I just reached out to just say, hey, how are you? Haven't talked to you in a while. And as we're texting, it was like a stream of consciousness text thread where I basically had a meltdown with him in the thread. And I was like, sorry, I didn't mean to dump on you. It just, as I'm texting this to you, it's coming out, right? This wasn't my intention. And he gave me some great advice, which I did kind of take, but just focus on like the physical, focus on getting your water, Focus on getting your sleep. I take vitamin D, especially in the winter, because, you're not getting as much, you're in the North. I used to live in Ohio, I'm from Ohio, and you don't get sunlight and it affects you like big time. So focus on like those habits, because sometimes just making sure you're in your routine, it might take 3-4 days a week, but the chemicals in your body will slowly start producing some of those feel good hormones and making you feel better. That's part of it. And also like physical activity. That's part of it. But then also from like the mental mindset of stress, I have always use this phrase that we are not curing cancer. Even if you are hosting an event for the American Cancer Society, like the work you're doing on that event is not going to cure cancer today or tomorrow. Yes, it may contribute with the funding and the research down the line, but it's not. And so keeping it in perspective, we're not saving lives. We're not first responders. We're not, as hard as our industry has been hit by layoffs, by companies going out of business. I mean, a lot of small businesses have shut their doors. Think about the nurses, the doctors, the first responders who have literally been dealing with COVID face-to-face for 2 years straight, right? And so I think sometimes if you just take a little perspective shift, that reduces some of that stress, because you're like, "Whoo, at least I'm not dealing with that." Or, it just puts it in the right mindset. And then I would say for independent planners, which I've dealt with this myself, I kind of alluded to it earlier, is be more selective with your clients, be more selective with the work. We are people pleasers. We have a tendency to just say yes, 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 either because, real talk, we've got bills to pay and we need that invoice, or, we want to have a good impression. We want people to give us good reviews that, we're a good business person and, we were responsive with customer service, all those things. But, the clients that are meant for you to work with, it'll come together. And if you're not meant to work with them, it won't. And so don't yield on your policies. Like if you've got policies on you don't work nights and weekends, or you've got policies that you don't give out your cell phone, like don't yield on those things, because you're going to regret it. If you've got policies on how many hours are available for a client or any of that, I think you've got to stick, you have to protect you. No one is going to come and defend you. You've got to stand up for yourself. So I think those are kind of key elements to just remember. And then the last thing I'll say is the perfectionism. Again, when I said about the whole, we're not curing cancer, like if you're in a space where you feel if you mess up, you're going to get in trouble or your client's going to fire you, like pick a different space, because we're not curing cancer. There's a difference between big mistakes and small mistakes, but we're human beings. It will happen. You have to give yourself some grace. And I think sometimes the fear of messing up so much is what is causing all this tension, and not necessarily the work itself.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. And I've, had those countless conversations about that as well. It's definitely taking the breaks, making sure you're taking care of yourself. But I love the perfectionism one, because I think sometimes just even in like kind of the client planner or client event, that whole dynamic, there ends up being a lot of that, right? And there is a lot of pressure for an event to be flawless, an event to be perfect. And when things do go wrong, there is a ton of pressure on the other side on why did it go wrong and things like this. And although I think that those types of conversations are beneficial for just overall making sure that things are better, I think there's definitely that threshold of, okay, we're going a little bit too far. We're going into the mental health space where you just probably want to stay away from. So I think it's an important conversation to have in the event industry, because like you said, we're not doctors, but we basically take on as much stress as they do. So it's really figuring out how in the industry, we can really kind of take that down a notch and make those changes that need to happen so that we can all be, feeling a little bit better about what we do.
I'm all for constructive criticism. I'm all for evaluating the successes and the misses, but like from the right viewpoint, not from well, why did you mess it up? How are you going to make sure? No. What you're not going to do, is stressing out about this event that to be honest, anyone outside of this room, no one cares. Like and again, keeping it in context, especially with virtual events, when there's a screen share problem or somebody needs to mute, like it feels like everyone is looking at you, like however long it takes to correct the problem, it feels 10 times longer than it actually takes. And so it's just like, we have this microscope on our mistakes, but the attendees don't even notice half of it. So like, again, just come at it from the right perspective and context that, let's look for how we can improve and always make, process improvements. But again, like, take a step back. It's just an event.
Right. Yeah. And taking a look at that, like, return on experience, right? And, what is the end result that you want the attendees to have, and really focusing on that. And I know that's something that you do a lot too with your business, is really focusing on kind of what that exchange is, what is the end result, what those attendees get, what is the power of the memories that they're experiencing on that event. So, I think that's something that you do really well. But why do you think that's overlooked most of the time?
So just to kind of reset the room, I lost 2 loved ones last year. I lost my grandmother, which she was 91, and it was kind of expected. It was a slow decline, but also my cousin, and that was not expected. He was 46 years young when he passed, and it was sudden, caught us all off guard. And reflecting on time with them, when the family's getting together for the services and you're pulling pictures, and it just highlights how much you take those moments for granted. And I like to say that memories are the receipts of our life that we're living. And how often are we checking our receipts? How often are we kind of being mindful of how we're spending our time? And how often we're in a space, whether it's an event or with our family or friends, where we're not making memories because we're not present in the moment. We're not paying attention to what we're experiencing. And then from an event planner perspective, I think it's getting so lost in the minutia and the details of the organizing and the planner piece that we lose sight of the bigger goal of the event, the impact that we want it to make on our attendees. Like, how do we want them to feel when they walk away? What do we want them to know when they walk away? And keeping that, the goals and the directives and the objectives at the forefront. So yes, you want to make sure that you're taking care of the details and you're planning it, but don't get so mired in those things that you lose track of the bigger picture. And events are experiences. They are moments in time. And the really successful ones are ones that people walk away with memories that they'll never forget. They'll walk away with stories that they'll tell others. They'll create FOMO. But that's based on how they feel. That's based on how the event touched them. And so I think if we lose sight of that as event planner and get so mired in the project management and the vendor management and our task list, we're just doing a disservice to the industry and our attendees.
I totally agree. And you remind me of a book we had in our book club called The Power of Moments by, I think it's Dan and Chip Heath. And he talks so much about those power of moments that happen in our lives, and just the privilege and honor to be creating that experience for them as a planner or a professional or producer. I think that's really huge. So just really taking yourself back to that purpose of what you're there to do. I think it's very, very, very powerful to, translate over to the attendee space for sure.
I just recently read that book. And I feel like it should be a manual for anyone that is in this industry, because it's not just, for anyone who hasn't read it, it's not just about, businesses creating moments or businesses creating events. It's really about, like, even as individuals, like the life we're living and being present and aware of the moments that we have, and making, elevating things. And it's epic. Elevating, there's pride, inspire, and connection. Like, how do we create those type of moments with the people around us? So even as just like a mom, as a daughter, like, I could take so many lessons from that for how I interact with my family and my friends, and making moments that matter. And then also, thinking back to the moments I've already had and how they've impacted me, and keeping that in mind, moving forward. It's an excellent read, and I I
Yeah.
also recommend it.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely so great. And I think it's just I feel like that's where we're even transitioning into. People really have had that insight we talked about on what really matters to me, how do I make an impact? And because of that, they're shifting around, right? And I feel like even those that are in the event space definitely should take a note from your book and say like, hey, how can I do this? How can I make sure that
Mm-hmm.
everyone's impacted in a powerful way with everything that I do? When I'm with my clients, how
Mm-hmm.
can I make sure that their experience, right, is,
Mm-hmm.
is powerful? The attendee
Right.
experience is powerful. Everyone that I sit and I talk with, how can I make sure that I'm present and available for
Mm-hmm.
what's supposed to happen in that moment?
And
So
even as the planner, like taking a moment, it's kind of common knowledge that
mhm,
a bride and a groom on their wedding day, they don't even really experience their wedding because they're just pulled in so many directions. And like after the fact, they're like, it was a blur. Like, I don't remember anything because you've created this experience, but on the day of it, you're not able to enjoy it. And so how many times as a planner are we running here, there, and everywhere? We're checking in with attendees and we're doing our job. I'm not saying we shouldn't
right.
do that, but do we take moments to just like, let me embrace this beautiful venue that I'm in. Let me embrace this reception. How many times do we make these awesome these awesome like receptions with these great menus and beautiful drinks that we don't even eat?
Right.
Right. So even if it's just like yes, you're creating this moment for your attendees, but you've done all this work and
Mhm.
you're not even going to take 5 minutes and like soak in what you've done and like celebrate that win, and again, it's just moments can be so powerful, memories can be so powerful. We just pay attention 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, yeah. And we do have such a really great opportunity in the event space to be able to travel, go to different places, experience venues and
Mm-hmm.
just moments unlike anyone else pretty much. And you can say even in the world, there's been so many people
Right.
that probably come to you and come to me like, oh my gosh, I love your life. And in the back of our heads, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm just so busy. But like you said,
Right.
if we could just
I know
take that off,
it's such a double-edged sword because it's
right?
like, okay, yes, events are fun,
But
but
they're
like
hard.
they are also stressful and you
Yes.
don't have any idea. But I've been able to travel a lot of places that I wouldn't have gone on my own. So
Mhm.
I was able to go to Brazil to work
Oh,
on an event. I
cool.
went to Seattle for an event. I went to Milwaukee actually
Oh, you're
to
near
work on
me.
an event. So yeah, so it's taken me all across the country, and even out of the country, and
Mhm.
so I'm very grateful. So I yes, when people say that to us, it's like I know our instinct is to be like, well, it's not all parties, but yes, it does come with some privileges and some perks that I'm very, very grateful for.
Oh, well, that's amazing. And I just wish you like all the best in your business and in your speaking and everything that you're doing. I'm so excited to just continue to watch and see where you go. Thank you so much for just being on the podcast. I wanted to just give you the opportunity to let everyone know where they can find you if they want to hear more or even learn a little bit more about your business.
Yeah, thanks so much, Naomi. So my website is deannacamille.com, DeannaCamille. So it's just my first name and my middle name. And you can find me on Instagram at DeannaCamille20. You can find me on LinkedIn, Deanna, and my last name is Nwosu, Wosu. But yeah, I'm pretty easy to find on the interwebs. And I, just reach out, follow me, or send a connection request. I accept strays. So happy to welcome newbies into the fold of my community.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, before you leave, I wanted to just have three quick surprise questions that I wanted
Okay.
to just ask you. So whatever comes off the top of your mind, that would be great. So,
We'll see what's left
we'll see what
jingling
happens.
around up there.
But here they are. Let us know the best advice that you've ever received in your life.
The best advice I've ever received is be really careful with what advice you take. You know your life and your situation better than anyone else. So take the best, filter the rest, and go about your day.
Awesome. And what is your favorite thing to do for self-care?
this is going to be really telling. Eat. It's probably not the best thing for my self-care. I love a lot of things, but dessert mostly. Okay. Yeah. Cake, cookies. Those are my downfall.
Okay. Well, hey, got to take care of you, right?
Right.
And then what, if you were to recommend, one or two books, what books would you recommend?
So we already talked about that Power of Moments book. I think that's a great read. I'm trying to think what else I read recently that was really good. I have heard that The Art of Gathering is really good. It's in my queue. I haven't listened to it yet. But for like event professionals, Atomic Habits. I'm working. It's a long read, but it's good. Yeah. And it's really powerful in terms of like tricking your mind and body to start doing the things you want to do. And as opposed to like being frustrated that you can't start the habits you want to start. So it's a good read.
Yeah, it is. We had that one in our book club too. So I hope you come to our book club. It would be really great.
I actually think I had signed up for that that session and I had a conflict. But yes, I will definitely try and join a book club session when I can.
Great. I loved just connecting with a fellow reader. So that's awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast. I just really appreciate having you, learning a little bit more about you. And I hope that we can do this again very soon.
Thanks so much, Naomi.
Thank you. Well, I absolutely enjoyed speaking with Deanna and can't wait till our paths cross again. And thank you so much for tuning in today on the Planners on Purpose podcast. I hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time, stay on purpose.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, hit the like button and tell us how much you enjoyed the show by leaving a message in the comments. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.